Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday, May 7th edition of Artist Waves live interview series. My name is Jeff Gora. Thank you for joining us. What a week this has been. I mean that in a good way, in the best possible way of live interviews. Man, we've had Brandon Boyd from Incubus. We had Citizen Cope yesterday. We got Kevin Martin from Candlebox, good friend of mine, great human being, is joining us today in about 4 or 5 minutes. And it's been a really, really fun week of interviews. And this whole experience has been really fun. Next week's schedule will be out pretty soon. And I can't think of a better way to end the week, to close the week of interviews than Kevin Martin from Candlebox. Just a great guy, great dude. He's had a lot of influence on Artist Waves. Someone that I've gotten to know a little personally and has had a really, really high. He's just been in Artist Waves corner. Let's put it that way, and it's been awesome. So I'm forever grateful to him. I'm going to be putting on in the background here while we warm up, while we wait for Kevin, Sometimes, which is my favorite Candlebox song. Somebody asked me this morning, what is my favorite Candlebox song? What are my favorite Candlebox songs? This is number one. Sometimes off Happy Pills. It's All Right. Blossom. Spotlights off of the most recent record, which is called Disappearing in Airports. But there's a new one coming out, and we're going to talk about it. Believe in It, which is kind of a unique Candlebox track. And of course, You. I mean, who doesn't love You? What a classic, one of the best rock songs of the 90s, in my opinion. Kevin is a unique and really talented, sincere individual. For those that don't know, some kind of cool facts about him. He started as a drummer and kind of defaulted his way into becoming a singer. And man, what a voice. I mean, he sings like this, and he was a drummer that became a singer. He also was on Madonna's label. Maverick was the first rock band, I believe, that Madonna's label Maverick signed. Madonna threw their party when they hit 1 million records sold, or 4 million records sold, something like that, in the early 90s. He, way before all of this, was one of the entries one of the singers who sang over the tape that Stone Gossard and Jeff Ament and I think Mike McCready put together before they found Eddie Vedder. I think Kevin has told a few cool stories about some songs that he wrote over the top. Hello from Memphis again. Hey Paul. Hey Tony the Tiger. Hi Joy. Kevin Martin from Candlebox today joining us. Kevin is probably going to be here in a couple minutes, and I'm really excited to talk to him. We'll probably take some questions at the end like we always do. We'll probably have a very casual, fun conversation like we're sitting in the back of the porch having a beer or something like that. I usually have a pretty extensive set list, and I didn't do that today because we are going to have a fun, just kind of chill conversation, talk about Candlebox, talk about rock and roll. I think Kevin's here, so let's get him in. Kevin!
This internet thing just is amazing, isn't it?
It's just like all of a sudden you're just there.
Boom!
I mean, it doesn't always work this well. And there you are.
Yeah, it doesn't always work this well for me. I never really have this much luck. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
A little crazy, little stir crazy, little cabin fever.
I hear you.
But healthy, family's healthy, and I've got no complaints. Other than it's hot as hell in LA today, and I don't have a pool, so my loss.
Well, yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. Same here. I don't have a pool either. I have a lot of background noise that you would maybe think that I do, but I don't. But yeah, no, I feel you. Same. I'm kind of hunkered down. This is like week 8 or 9 for us.
Yeah.
So it's going through the motions. What have you been up to? What's quarantine life in the Martin household? Playing some guitar with the with the fellas? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing a little bit of guitar. I'm kind of resetting up my studio to start recording and stuff. I haven't had a studio like in my house for a long, long time. So I'm setting that up. Mainly, I guess, probably just because I've been touring so much over the past few years. I just really don't have any reason to have a studio. So I'm setting that up, which has been nice. Baking bread every day. I've got 2 loaves going now. I mean, whatever.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
You got skills.
Like I got a couple skills.
Every time you post it, it looks better and better, and it looked good from the start, man. So
yeah, I'm lucky. I have patience to do it. It's about a 6-hour process, so it's actually 24 hours because I like to let it sit overnight, but whatever.
Oh, nice.
This is boring.
Right on. I was listening to your podcast with Nomad, which was a really fascinating conversation. And you were talking early on, you were saying how we were talking about life as a touring artist and what this means now to just be home and stuff. And you were talking about how you've always moved around a lot, and just like being in one place or being home for a long time is kind of foreign ground for artists and groups that tour a lot. And you were saying, like, I never really thought of it this way, but it was a really fascinating point about how maybe there's like some getting used to that. Like it's a little uncomfortable to be in one place or just be home for so long when you're usually thinking about, all right, I got this leg of the tour coming up, or I'm going here or whatever. I mean, for like someone like me or fans, it's you obviously know that the artist can't tour right now. They can't be on the road, but you don't necessarily think about the other psychological component of, well, how do you adjust to being in one place or being home for so long? That was a really interesting subject matter.
Yeah, it's funny. I've talked about it with the guys in the band as well, and and several of my friends. I was talking with Zach Myers about it a couple weeks ago. The Shinedown guys had to cancel an entire tour. This is not a life that we as musicians understand. I mean, we did when we were growing up, and if you're a successful musician and you hit that point where the deal signed and the record's coming out and your career starts, you forget all that past history. You forget being at home every day when you came home from school in 8th grade or 9th grade or 10th grade. Whatever that life you had before being a touring musician, it goes out the window. And because this life becomes really, it just becomes your day to day for everything. I mean, even when you come home, every musician will tell you when they come home from tour, the first thing they generally do is sit down in front of the TV and turn something on, because that's what you're used to doing on the road. You're on the tour bus or you're in a dressing room, and there's something that, it's that convenience or it's that kind of familiarity that you have with coincides with touring. And then you're home for a long period. And I can only speak for myself and for bands that tour like we do, or that are constantly touring year in and year out. I'm sure the Foo Fighters are very comfortable being home for, 6 and 7 months at a time. But bands like us and Shinedown and Papa Roach and all those kinds of bands, we're used to being out on the road all the time. So it takes some getting used to. But it also allows you, the freedoms to pick up the hobbies that, you may have had before, start something new, or, learn a little bit more about your son and his school, or your daughter and their school. I mean, whatever it is, you've got to kind of pick up on those elements of your life that you may have set aside for a while,
Yeah, for sure. I've been doing that, and I mean, I haven't been on the road or whatever, but that type of stuff has been going on in my house quite a bit, and getting engaged and stuff like this. I mean, it's busy. Has there been anything that you've gotten into that you normally wouldn't have? Like this time has given you the opportunity to pursue some sort of creative interest or some other interest that you normally wouldn't have had the time
baking
for?
bread.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a friend of mine called me and he's like, you know, you need to do this because he's like, you're super anal and you're super, you know, OCD, and you kind of like, right now I'm looking at the floor in my office where my studio used to be, and my wife's got her stuff out here, and like there's shit on the ground and I'm picking it up. Like that's my thing, you know. I'm weird like that. So he's like, you will totally be patient enough to do Bread. And it's true. I mean, I just watched the whole thing with, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal and Stephen Colbert, and like Stephen Colbert's got the sourdough starter, and so does Jake. I mean, it's everybody's kind of picked it up because it's something that there's nothing. First of all, nothing like fresh bread. I don't know if anybody that's watching this is huge in the sourdough world, but when it comes out of the oven and you let it sit for an hour and then you cut into it, it's pretty unbelievable. And it's not, you know, $7 a loaf or $5 a loaf. It's something that you made yourself. So yeah, I picked that up and I've really enjoyed it. I'm working on, like I said, you know, kind of setting my studio up. Maybe I'm thinking about doing some sort of like weird kind of solo record of some of my, you know, favorite styles of music and things that I'm inspired by. I've got drum machines and keyboards and stuff. So, you know, I mean, I may release a, you know, record on my own here, since we don't have a release date for our record because of all of this COVID stuff. Sony's pushed everything back. So we were supposed to come out in May, and that's not happening, obviously. And then they were thinking maybe September. So I really don't know when the Candlebox record's coming out. It's done. It's the artwork's being done now, and masters are done. Everything's ready to go. But, you know, life is kind of crazy right now. So yeah, I picked up all these sorts of, doing a lot of work around the house, planted tomatoes. I've got a garden going now, you know, just shit I wouldn't normally do. And I'm really enjoying it. The only thing I'm missing most is, you know, some form of, you know, musical exercise or something like that, where I, you know, I'm so used to kind of running around on stage and being in that environment. That's the thing that I'm kind of missing. Whether or not I'm taking a hike here in the hills or something like that, you know, it's not the same. It's not what I'm used to.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. You got some solo songs coming too out of it. That's doubling up. That's awesome.
Well, we'll see. I don't know if it's going to be worth the shit, but we'll give it a go.
The last time I saw you in person was it must have been about a year ago now. Last spring when you guys were touring on the anniversary tour, and I think it was in April in Boston. And I was thinking about it because I knew that you had the wheels were starting to turn on some new material, and I was wondering what was it like for you to basically take a moment to reflect upon the legacy of Candlebox and all the awesome stuff that you guys have accomplished, and recognizing, you know, your debut and the release of the initial record, but also maybe having a foot in the future. Did you straddle a line, or were you like totally submersed in the moment of the anniversary tour, not necessarily thinking about new music? Or how was that for you? What was that experience like?
That's an interesting question. I think mainly, you know, when we're touring, my focus is generally on, you know, that show that night. I'll start writing the set list like around noon or 1 o'clock. I'll sit down with Adam or Island or Brian, and we'll kind of go through the songs and figure out what we want to, you know, play, or what that evening's set list is going to entail, because we know we're playing the debut album in its entirety, but we wanted to include other songs that we like, and that we'd like to play live. So that, you know, that's kind of my entire existence, you know, when I'm touring, is really about the show that evening. But we were going through a lot of ideas of things that we were going to be recording come, you know, that August. So there was a lot of conversation and a lot of sound checks where we were working on some of these songs that ended up on the new record. Island and I, you know, we both kind of get into that pattern where once we're working on something at sound check, we like to stay focused on it. And so Carlos would record it, our sound guy. He would record a sound check. So we got a lot of the material for this record from sound checks. So, you know, I think Candlebox has always been that way. You know, even when we were touring on the debut album, we were writing for Lucy while we were touring. That whole last 8 weeks we did in 1994 with the Flaming Lips, I think we wrote 4 or 5 of the songs that made Lucy on that tour. So it's kind of, you know, where my headspace is when I'm when I'm traveling, is to have some sort of idea of what I want to be doing if I'm going to be recording. But then when I know I'm not going to be in the studio, I'm only focused on the live show and the songs. So it really doesn't. Had I thought about the legacy of the band, on that tour, of course, I mean, we're 30 years old come January 1st of next year as a band, and or as a band name, I should say, the brand Candlebox. So I mean, it's quite an accomplishment, and I'm not. I don't think I certainly hope I haven't ever taken it for granted. I know that I have moments where I can be a bit disconnected from it, and want to kind of escape, what it is that I guess maybe is expected of me as a musician. I would much rather sometimes not have to play, Far Behind or You, even though they're, our most successful songs, and I love them as much as I did when I wrote them. It just would be nice to not have to play them, but that's, I think, every musician kind of goes through that, point in their career where they're very happy and they love what they've created, but they would like to just not have to do it, like a job. I mean, it's a stupid joke. We talk about when the band was touring back in 94, 95. And our friend Jeff, who was kind of our assistant at the time, he was touring with us. He called Barty up in his room one day. It was like 11:30, 12 o'clock. And Jeff was like, listen, I'm going to come by your room at 1 o'clock. You've got an interview at 1:30. I need to take you to, and then we've got this thing we're doing at 3 o'clock, this press thing. And Barty said, Jeff, just one day I would not like to, I would like to not have to do something. And Jeff, as a smart ass, said, what, like a job, So there are moments as a band where you unconsciously take it for granted, because it's the easiest job in the world. I mean, I'm talking to you right now, from the comfort of my office, and I'm a touring musician. I've had a career for 30 years almost now, and I have the audacity to complain about having a hit song. It's stupid, but I think we all do that, God, and I pinch myself every day that I'm lucky enough to have had this career, as long as I have.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear your insight on it, because I mean, from the other side, from a fan perspective, I mean, and just seeing what you guys put out on the stage, every single show, everything you pour into it, it's obvious that how much in the moment and appreciative and grateful you guys are as a group. I remember this is probably I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months before I saw you in Boston, before the Seattle show, when you guys did the original lineup, the reunion show. I texted you right when you got there, or right before you were starting to rehearse, and I said, what was the first song you guys played first time together in this amount of time, first time you rehearsed? And you said, don't you? And I said, what did it feel like? And you just wrote great in huge letters, all caps, and I was like, that was the perfect answer.
Yeah.
It's like, and then that translates to the stage. I'm curious about new music, though. You said a lot of stuff was written, some ideas came from Soundcheck. Other than that, were a bunch of this, are all of these songs relatively new, or are there any stuff that you have had with you for a while that has just like come back around?
All brand new. I wrote one song on this record I wrote with Peter Cornell, Chris's brother.
Oh, nice.
Which is amazing. I love it. Now, Pete and I, we go way, way back to Seattle, the days of running around in the clubs. And we just reconnected a couple years ago. And it's been amazing to kind of rekindle that relationship. After Chris passed, it was strange to have a conversation with Peter about it. But in the process of those conversations, we wrote the song together, which I love.
Oh, that's awesome.
I wrote a song on this record with a kid named Keith Longo, which he sent me like 5 things, and I fell in love with this one track, which we've recorded, called Riptide. Island and I wrote 2 of the songs on this record. That one of was written Soundcheck, the other one was written kind of via text messages. Whatever. 2 songs written in the studio, and I wrote 2 songs in my office here like a 2 or 3 days before we went into the studio. So
Oh, awesome.
all of it kind of came together when it was supposed to. You know, I don't make records. I've said it a million times. I don't make records until I'm ready to make them. Until I feel like I want to record something. Until I feel like I have something to say. And so there was a part of me making this record where I wasn't ready. I didn't want to do it. I fought with the guys twice in the studio. I think I mentioned that on the podcast as well. And I think it was just because my own insecurities, you know, as a musician, feeling the pressures of what's going on in the world, and my disdain for the office of the United States right now. You know, I really was like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I do want to say everything I'm feeling. And, you know, sometimes that's hard because, you know, we get those messages that say, you know, stick to singing or stick to playing music or some shit like that. And, you know, so feeling as though I wasn't ready to be in the studio to make an album, that was just my own fear of not having lyrics for songs and not trusting the band the way I should have, just because of my own, you know, kind of fears of failure, you know, which I think I haven't had in a long, long time. I haven't had that kind of feeling in a while. So it was strange. And it took me, 5 months to do the vocals on the record, because I kept writing the lyrics and then I would get rid of what I was writing and I would throw that away and come back to the song, because I was kind of disconnected from the tracks. And I never write lyrics before a song. It's just not my way. I let the song dictate to me what it wants me to say. Or it gives me the emotion that I'm looking for, and then I write based on it. And I kind of felt like I was missing the point. And then come right around December 1st of last year, I called Dean and I said, okay, let's do the record and let's finish the vocals in January. So I was, at that point, I was prepared with 5 of the 11 tracks, and then I wrote the rest of the lyrics while I was in Houston doing the vocals.
Oh, wow. So you guys recorded in LA and Houston, or mostly Houston?
Yeah, we tracked the record here in LA, and then I did the vocals in Houston.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you finding like, well, where you find it when you're writing this? I find, I mean, I'm not writing a record or songs that much, but there's either like so much to write about. There's so much circling in my mind that I want to put to paper.
Yeah.
That it's either one thing or one moment strikes and it's just tunnel vision and you got it, or it's just too much to write about that I turn away from it.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
Does that happen to you? It does. Yeah. And is speaking of, you mentioned Riptide. Is that the song you wrote with Peter, or is
No, I wrote the song I wrote with Peter's called "Let Me Down Easy."
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of it's based. It kind of mirrors Robert Johnson's Crossroads. The reference of you know, feeling as though you're at the end of your rope with your despair. You've done these things that, you know, you've sinned and you're begging for forgiveness, and then the devil comes along and kind of convinces you that that, you know, it's okay and that's your path, you know, just because it's what you do. So I kind of loosely based the lyrics on that kind of the blue, because the song is very bluesy. So I based it loosely on that kind of a character who knows he's going he's not going quiet into that dark night, and you know, everything's chased him, and you know, there's a lyric in the song, or there's a line in the song that sooner or later is going to catch me, son, you know. So it's like he knows that it's inevitable that he is going to be going to hell, whatever hell that may be. He just wants to be let down easy. He doesn't want to go down the hard way. And so that was kind of, you know, and that really had everything to do with the way Pete sent me the song. It was done on acoustic and a slide, and it felt so kind of dirty and raw that I was like, I need to keep this. I need to keep this element of blues in the song, but contemporize it as well. So we approached that one from kind of a Black Rebel Motorcycle Club sort of way, where the guitars are very sparse, but the drum beat is really the foundation of the track. The drums and the bass line carry the song and keep that blues momentum and kind of the steam train rolling, if you will. And I think it's just, we're releasing it as a lyric video here soon. It'll go out to everybody as a single, because we can't get a release date, but that will be the first thing we release. And I'm excited about it because I love the song so much.
Oh man, that's heavy. That is a deep perspective. I can't wait to hear it. That's the first single?
Yeah, that'll be the first single.
Oh man, that's great. Awesome. I crossed paths with Pete just by coincidence. I used to live in New York City years ago. I played in a band with my friends, and he was in New York City with Black Market Radio.
Yep.
And we played just by chance some of the same New York clubs.
Yeah.
And I love that. I still love that record.
Yeah.
It's a great song. Yeah. So cool. I can't wait to hear it. Speaking of songs that I love, I gotta mention something real quick. I've been thinking about this a lot. So a couple years ago, I wrote right around when Artist Waves first started. I wrote a piece on Sometimes, which from Happy Pills, which is one of my favorite songs in the world. And I did this whole little kind of creative spin on it. And you got hold of it and you said you had the nicest, most positive, encouraging feedback on it. And then it was great. And then I saw you maybe 6 months later when you and Brian were doing the acoustic tour at a place called the Narrow Center, which is about 30 minutes outside Boston, a BYOB place. That's like a hollowed out art. And we did another interview, and I said to you, "Are you guys playing Sometimes tonight?" And you're like, "Oh, I did the set list, but I don't think so. I think I might have left that one out." In fact, that is that's the set list from that night. It's hanging on my wall here. You guys signed it for me and gave it to me. But you like, let me think about it. Let's see what happens. So about midway through the set, you kind of give Brian a head nod, and not only did you play it, not write it in, play it spur of the moment. You gave like a 5-minute intro about what I had written about it, about the song, about that I was there, and there's this new venture called Artist Waves, and Sometimes, and you talked a lot about the song and the piece I'd written. And I gotta tell you, man, I haven't gotten the opportunity to really tell you in detail. From that moment on, it changed the whole perspective and the whole vision of what I was shooting for with Artist Waves.
Oh,
it totally changed my perspective and impacted me in a way that I am forever grateful to you for encouraging and in recognizing and being in my corner from an artist's perspective.
Oh, man, thank you. My pleasure. It was the easy thing to do. You wrote something amazing.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I mean, you give me credit for doing something like that. I mean, a song to me is just a song, and it's I connect myself to it based on whatever relationship I'm having with that track. It's people like you that tell me stories about this stuff. About a song like Sometimes, or You, or Far Behind, or that's just for me. It's just the greatest feeling because I grew up in a household of, 2 older brothers and an older sister, and I was the baby, and I, of course I got a lot of attention, but it wasn't really the right kind of attention because I was always getting in trouble. So I'm lucky that I found music, and it's enabled me to kind of share my stories about, the emotions behind what I do. But I really, really appreciate when people let me know how the songs affected them. And when you and I spoke about that, it was an easy thing for me to express my gratitude for what you had written, about something that I had written. And I think that that's really kind of, the world that I would like to live in a lot is a world that's that gracious, and that kind. And I don't think we live in that, in those types of moments enough.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think gracious was the perfect word for it because I really felt that, and you guys have always been a really gracious group, you and Brian and everyone. So I'd be kicking myself if I didn't bring that up quickly in this format. Speaking of which, I have one more point that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about that I always wanted to. I meant to ask you last time I saw you, and I didn't because I forgot, but. About a year ago, we did a piece honoring Silverchair, which is a group that I love.
Yeah.
Around about Diorama, which is a record that I love. Masterpiece, one of my favorite. And you wrote in and commented and said, I called it a masterpiece, and commented and said, masterpiece is not a strong enough word for that record.
Yeah.
And I've been dying to know what you think of that record, and were you a fan of theirs? Because that is one of my favorite records of all time.
Yeah, I love Silverchair. You know, even Frog Stomp is, as much as, you know, people kind of made fun of them for, you know, kind of sound like a Seattle band. I mean, these were, you know, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids that made a record that blew up. I mean, it wasn't bop. It was, you know, real grungy rock and roll. But I think that, that he, as a songwriter, from an early age, you always knew what he wanted. And that's what I always loved about Daniel Johns. And I think when he got to that period of his life, and I think that was right when he was dating Natalie Imbruglia, or they were married, or was it Natalie Imbruglia, or no, it was
yeah, I think you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, you know, he was accomplishing something musically that a lot of people were looking for. These concept albums from, you know, Marilyn Manson and all these types of bands. You know, a lot of bands were doing concept albums. Silverchair released something that was very, for me, very similar to like a Pink Floyd type of a concept album, where Diorama took you on this journey through his psyche and through his mental health and his struggles with depression and his struggles with everything in his life. You know, I think that kid is still fighting with himself as to what he wants out of life musically, and even maybe, but you know, that record to me, it's perfect. It was the perfect record for Silverchair, and I think it was probably, you know, I was lucky enough to see them play it here in LA at the El Rey Theater a few years back before they broke up, and it absolutely floored me. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You're back. Yeah, no, I love them, and I love that record. I saw them right when that happened too, and it was amazing. So I was curious your perspective from the artist's perspective. So it's not to just throw a random zinger in there, but I saw a few questions come in while we were talking about your new record that I want to pay attention to, if it's cool with you.
Yeah.
Someone asked if there is a title for the new record yet, and if that's something.
The title of the album is Wolves.
Wolves.
Nice. Yeah. And we found an artist out of Spain that I fell in love with some of these watercolors that she was doing, and she had done some of Wolves, and so our management team tracked her down, and she's in Spain, and she's spectacular. So I'm really looking forward to what she delivers for the album cover and the inside art and whatnot. But you know, I called it Wolves because I kind of feel like that's where we, as a society, that's kind of what we. I feel that's what we're becoming. There's a pack mentality, but there's also you know, a real aggressiveness right now that I find very disturbing. And I think wolves are beautiful creatures, but they're incredibly dangerous. And you know, in the saying, a wolf in sheep's clothing, you know, we have a ton of those in our world right now, not just in the United States, but in the world. There's a lot of this going on, and so that's just, you know, I said I want to call the record Wolves, and so we are. Sorry, somebody's trying to find me.
That's a great title. I think it's perfect. You froze for a second.
I mean, I got people picking up bread. You know, I'm like, I got stuff going on here, man. Hey, Nat. Gavin, come up. Natalie, give it to you.
Picking up bread. Oh, nice. You're taking it up a notch. I wish I was closer. I would come by with a mask on. And
I mean, that's what I got two loves going here, and I'm doing an interview with him. He's coming by to pick up a loaf. One of my oldest friends in the world, and of course we're social distancing, so you know, trying to keep ourselves somewhat sane. But yeah, sorry about that.
No, I hear you.
I got a business to run here, bro. I'm doing shit.
Come on, this is serious. That's what I like about these. It's like authentic, real little. You never know what's gonna happen. But cool. Wolves is a pretty killer title.
Yeah, it's come on in, Gav. Yeah, it's pretty rad.
And in terms of like planning for it now, you guys were doing, which I thought was really cool. It's still, some of it's still on your site. You guys were doing some participation from fans or from crowd source, whatever you want to call it, where people were able to do some really interesting and unique things with you guys, whether it's like a pre-show drink or watch from the side of the stage or have your name in the credits. How's that been going? Do you enjoy that still? Or it gives you some really cool engagement or unique relationships, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it does. The interesting thing about it is, and the unfortunate thing about it in this situation now is, we alleviated the drinks with the band because we found like we were just getting too drunk before shows. So now it's just sound checks and you get vinyl in the sound check and a meet and greet with the band. But now we're going to have to like kind of address how that's going to go, until there's a vaccine for this COVID-19. So, listen, crowdfunding is a great way for an independent artist such as us to pay the bills. We don't get a lot of money from a distribution company to make a record. I think they give us $10,000 or something like that. So, we have enormous amounts of bills and costs and, those types of things that come up with it. But the beauty of it is it does give our fans the opportunity to spend time with us and be involved in something that, in the long run, they can say, I was one of the funders of that project. I was one of the people that was involved in making that record. And, if I could have said, I was one of the fundraisers for Dark Side of the Moon, that gives me a lot of cachet. I don't know if, Candlebox is as much cachet as Pink Floyd is, but, sure. It's an interesting way to incorporate your fans into your career. And of course, everybody's doing it now. I mean, you'll never see us charging $5,000 and $6,000 and $7,000 for a meet and greet. But if you want to be an executive producer on the record and you want to have, free tickets for life and you get 4 tickets and even at festivals, for $10,000, I think, that's, if somebody's got 10 grand floating around for 4 free tickets whenever they want forever at any show they want to come to for life, if you're a big enough Candlebox fan, I think that's a great opportunity, but yeah, I mean, it's sitting on stage, birthday shout outs, song shout outs, handwritten lyrics, which I'm not doing anymore because my hand's cramped up from that. But, all those types of things, it's really just a way of not only, letting our fans know how much we appreciate them for donating and being a part of the process of making the record, but it's a way of us kind of connecting with our fans on a personal level.
I think it's great, and it gives them an emotional attachment to the record and to the music and to what you guys are putting out. Not so much that like, hey, look at me, look at my name. I think the people that do that, either they have a ton of money and they don't know what to do with it, or they feel very connected and deeply affected by your music. So really cool. We got another question I thought was interesting from Jake Giants 10. Do you have a favorite song that you've ever written?
I have several. Sometimes it's one of my favorites. Stone's Throw is one of my favorites. Miss You, Love Her Come Back to Me. I think You is probably my all-time favorite song that I've ever written. I just lyrically and melodically, and I think the song in general is just rad. But it's hard to pick, man. On Lucy, Butterfly Reprise is one of my favorites. And even though I don't really like that record that much, I've realized that I love playing the songs live. I just don't like the tone of the album and the way the record was produced. But other than that, every record, Disappearing Airports, has like 3 or 4 songs on it that are my favorites. So I can't really pick one, but if I had to, it'd probably have to be You, just because I think that song it's just a perfect song, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot to pick from. It's cool. A lot of people don't necessarily have an answer to that. It's like, it's like picking a favorite kid, but there's got to be something that you're attached to in some way. I think we got probably time for one more question. Someone wants to send it in, but one other thought I had about the new record. I was talking a little bit about how you started as a drummer, and I think everyone probably knows your history of being a drummer first. But I'm always curious from a writer's perspective, when you're writing new songs or you're in the studio, is it hard for you to let the drummer be the drummer, or let the guitar player write the guitar parts? Or do you feel like sometimes, like, no, as the songwriter, I'm a little closer to this. I want the drums to sound like this. Like, do you ever go in and do the drum if you have something else in mind?
I did with Let Me Down Easy, just because Dave wasn't kind of hearing what I was hearing. So I was like, let me show you. But most of the time with Cruisin', I don't have to do anything. I mean, he's so talented as a drummer. I mean, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for God's sake. So
Yeah.
I guess he knows what he's doing pretty well, and he has. Dave's been with me since Happy Pills, really. Even though Scott was back with us on Into the Sun and Love Stories, Dave Cruisin' actually was the drummer on those records. There was only like 2 or 3 songs that Scott played on, and that I think was really kind of the downside of Scott and I's relationship, is because I do have my rhythmic opinions about those songs, and when I'm writing them, I need them to feel a certain way. He and I butted heads, but with Dave, I don't butt heads. With the guitar players, I generally let them do their thing. They play what they want to play. I'm really only ever adamant about solos. I sat with Pete when he was recording Far Behind, and I sang guitar parts to him, things that I was looking for in that solo. For specific songs. I know on this record, the solo on Riptide, I had 9 or 10 different approaches from Island and Brian. I wasn't keen on them. Then Pete Klett sent me 4 or 5. He was close. And then Kevin Holland, who's just a really good friend, happened to be in the studio one day. And I said, have a go at this solo. And he nailed it. So it just really depends. I mean, most of the time I'm hands off. I'm looking for something. I need a certain kind of energy, but I'm not directing that much. But when it comes to solos and things like that, I'm really particular. Yeah.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing. I'm always fascinated by the process, the writing process, and the artistic process. So cool. Those are some pretty amazing titles we got so far. We got Wolves, we got Riptide, we got Let Me Down Easy, and Los Angeline, right? So,
Los Angeles, yeah.
So that's some big. Those are some nice titles to put some songs to. So I can't wait, man. I'm stoked. Last question that came in, and I'll let you go, is a lot of people are asking this question during these interviews, which is kind of a fascinating question, I guess. But it's, what music personally are you listening to right now during this quarantine, stay-at-home madness? What's getting you through? What are you going to?
I'm listening to a lot of Boss Gags. I love Boss Gags. The Pandora radio station is really cool. I know it kind of seems strange or maybe a little bit stupid that I'm listening to something that old, but I think he's such a talented guy, and I love all his records from when I was growing up. Listening to the Whole Damn Mess record, which is a band that tours with us all the time, Don Miggs and the boys. I know Greg popped in and said hi. I don't know if CJ and C-Todd and all those cats did, but that, I think that band's got something really special, and they've got some amazing songs, and they have a new record that's going to be coming out soon that's just unbelievable. So I mean, I know that most of these people that are probably watching this know who they are, but if you don't, it's called The Whole Damn Mess. Check them out. Listening to Greg Upchurch's new single that he wrote about.
I love that song.
Yeah. Which I think is really cool. We're supposed to be doing some dates with Three Doors Down come August and September, so I'm really looking forward to that, and fingers crossed that happens. I'm listening to a lot of kind of the Tame Impala, I really, what else am I listening to that I'm liking? I mean, I kind of like that White Reaper band a lot.
Yeah.
I downloaded their entire catalog, and I'm just in love with that band. I think they're so cool. And I did not know they were out of, I think it's Knoxville, Tennessee, and I just think they're brilliant. But yeah, I mean, a lot of classics, man. Like, God, Paul McCartney and Wings. I mean, going back to music, I think that's taking me back to a part of my life that I remember fondly from growing up. And maybe that's, my father's been gone now going on 15 years or actually 16 years. My mom's, 80 and not doing well. I'm not with my family and not able to see my brothers and my sister because we're all kind of, 2 in Seattle and 1 in Dallas. And so I'm maybe feeling a little bit nostalgic, not being able to see my family. So maybe that's why I'm listening to that stuff that I grew up with. But out of the new stuff, I mean, I'm not really listening to any new rock and roll that other than Tame Impala, which I don't think there's anybody that's releasing anything right now that I'm really kind of keen on.
Yeah, I've been doing the same thing. Only music that kind of brings me to a certain space or that I grew up on too. So that's always cool. And so it's one question, but it always results in so many different answers and so many different perspectives. So cool. Thanks for sharing, man. Well, listen, I could talk all day, but I'll let you go. I gotta
get to my bread.
You got some bread to sell, man. And
I got folding to do, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you wanted to do a whiskey cheers, but I realized that it's only 2:00 and maybe you got some homeschooling and bread to make or something like that. So
I've been known to have whiskey at 2:00, not today.
Yeah, I hear you. Right on. Well, thanks so much, Kevin. It's always great speaking with you, man. I'm always grateful to you and the group and all you've done and continue to do. And again, how gracious you are.
Thanks, Jeff. My pleasure.
And how you've always been in our corner. And I can't wait to see you guys back out on the road and hear the new music.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'll send you the track. You can listen to "Let Me Down Easy," and I think it's going up. I think it's going up in like a week or something. So.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, new music out soon, folks. Thank you so much.
How do you prepare for when the record will be released? During this, like, can you just say, you just push it back? Like, what do you do?
It's really in Sony's corner, because that's our distribution. So, you can ask them to release it now. You can ask them to release it in January. They're going to say our schedule's not going to allow for that. So because we're not a major artist, and we're not one of their majors, we're third and fourth, I guess in the decision-making process, third or fourth. So, it's really kind of up to them, but we will have a release date. I was told yesterday we'll have a release date for the record by Monday. That, fingers crossed that happens, but you never know.
Sounds good. Well, in the meantime, we got some new music coming, so
yeah.
It all sounds good. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone who chimed in and
thanks everybody.
Sent in questions. Rainbow Lily, the Goudas, Kelly G.
A lot of names on there.
A lot of cool names. Mexico, right on. Thank you, everybody. Kevin, great speaking with you, bro. I really appreciate it. Chat soon.
You too, dude. Thanks, man. We'll see you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Jeff from Wave signing off. Take care. Thank you. See you next time.